Good day, Junior Techies. This is Mrs. DeMelon speaking, and we are going to look at activity 2 for the reconciliations. So, in this activity, it says, use the information below to reconcile the creditor's control account with the creditor's list. And if we look at the opening balances, you can clearly see that they are not equal, and they should be if we've done everything correct. So we have to now look at the transactions and make sure that at the end of this, these balances or the control balance and the list is the same amount. So if we look at each transaction, you have to think about the flow of the accounting cycle. So we start with a transaction onto a document, into a journal, then post it to the control account, and at the end of the month as a total, or individually every day to the specific person or company's account, and then eventually both must match up. So if we look at the first transaction, it says, well, before we go there, a creditor's control and a creditor's list is a current liability. So we are minusing on the debit side and plussing on the credit side. So minusing will be payments or discounts or debit notes, and plussing will be invoices or credit purchases that we have to record, or any obviously other corrections will either minus or plus the account. So the first transaction says that an invoice has not been entered in the journal. So a source document is gone or not recorded. Therefore, the list and the control account is wrong because no posting happened into a journal or therefore further along the line. So you're going to have to fix the list and the control account. And both the list and the control account will increase because this is a credit purchase transaction, increasing our debt with the invoice. The second one, the discount of 120 Rand has not been entered into the creditor's account. So the creditor's account is the list specifically, and discount that wasn't recorded means that the list must decrease. Number 3, a debit note for 3,200 Rand was not entered into the allowance journal. So if it's not in the journal, it wasn't posted anywhere. So therefore, the list and the control account is affected, and both of them must minus because a debit note will debit, therefore minus a current liability. Number 4, the creditor's journal had been undercost by 300 Rand. So the total of the journal was wrong. So the control account must be fixed. And undercost means that it was the creditor's journal, in other words, the credit purchases, the plus was under. So we have to add to the control account. Then the creditor's list has been undercost. In other words, the adding was wrong and we missed 1,000 Rand somewhere. So we have to add as well 1,000 Rand to the list. And then finally, the opening balance of the control account had been overcost. So last month somewhere, or the opening balance, there was a typo or something, and 100 Rand was added where it shouldn't have been. So we must minus off the 100 Rand from the control account. So if we then continue and we look at the layout of the activity, or before we look at the layout of activity, all the time that we do these transactions, I was referring to this sort of the layout here, or this diagram. And you have to have this diagram next to you at all times. So where's the error in the document? Then fix both. Is the error in the total? Fix the control account. Is the error in the debt or the creditor's account? Fix the list. So have this next to you at all times so that you don't get confused. So when we have this, we must remember, or this table, we must remember that we are working with current liabilities. So debit is minus and credit is plus. So that already helps us. Furthermore, we need to know what minuses and what pluses. So a minus or a debit will be your CPJ, your payments, your returns or your creditors' allowances, and then your GJ debits, any correction that must minus. Your pluses must always be your balance brought down, your creditors journal or your invoices, your journal credits, which will be interest on overdue accounts or any increase that we have to add there from the general journal. So therefore, now you start with the balances given to you at the beginning of the month. They will not be equal. They will not be the same. We have to make them equal. So they gave us a credit balance of 19,940 and a credit for the total of the list. They are both credits because we are working with liabilities. Transaction number 1 was an invoice that was left out. So both the list and the control account must increase or credit with 1,760 Rand. Transaction number 2 was discount that was left out one specific creditor's account. So the list must minus or debit with 120 Rand. Then, yet again, there was a debit note that was left out. So the 3,200 Rand will influence the control account as well as the debtors list, and both of them must debit minus off. Then there was a transaction that had to correct the debtors control account that was under cost. So you add to that, to the control account, 300 Rand. And then the next one, there was a under cost of the creditors list. So we have to add the 1,000 Rand there. And then finally, there was an overcost of the opening balance. So we must minus off 100 Rand from the control account. And then we have to get our totals. So this total just means total debit, total credit, total debit, total credit. So you just add down, make your sum. So remember to include the opening balance here, 19,940 plus 1,760 plus 300 gives you the 22,000, and so forth and so on. And then you get your totals. Then to get your balance, you obviously say your total credits minus your debits will equal a credit balance of 18,700. So the 22,000 minus the 3,300 gives us 18,700. And we're going to do the same on the other side. The total credits, the bigger number, minus the total debits will give you the total credit. So 22,020 minus 3,320 also gives us 18,700 Rand credit. And now we know that the control account equals the list. So are we done? Yes, we are, because our reconciliation has now proved that the totals are the same and all errors and omissions have been fixed. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you realize that your formats and your layouts are super, super important in this section. You will not understand the control reconciliation with a list if you don't know the layout of the control account. If you don't know on what side an invoice goes, is it a debit or a credit? If you don't know what the effect of a debit note is that a plus or a minus? So you have to really go back to basics and understand every single thing from the source document through all the way to the balancing at the end. And you have to follow your steps, step by step, transaction by transaction. Thank you so much, and we are going to look at activity 3, control accounts reconciliation again. Have a very good day.